E-drums. The stereotype is they're acoustic drums' unserious younger sibling. They're one step from Guitar Hero, what you give the kids when you're pretty sure the drum thing is just a phase. You see them in a woebegone corner at Guitar Center, not so gently used. You hear the thwack of wood on rubber, a sound you feel shouldn't exist in music. They're unrealistic in feel, sound, and everything else. Little more than a distant second best, when you can only play on an acoustic kit a couple times a week. I've held these beliefs since I first played E-drums in between music school classes at Sam Ash in New York in the early 2000s. And I'm here to tell you that with the current generation of E-drums, these beliefs are almost completely wrong. And I'm late to this party. Here's why it took me so long. E-drum manufacturers have contacted me a few times throughout the years, offering to send me stuff. I'm always flattered, and until now, I've always declined. Finally, this year, because I'm moving anyway, and I had a slot in the content calendar, which sounds way more organized than it is, I figured, what the heck, YOLO. I agreed on the express condition that I would make the review I wanted, not a marketing video for the company. If the drums sucked, I'd say so. If they were great, people would know they could trust my review. Then we pulled the trigger. And I did not know what I was getting myself into. Literally comical number of boxes. My absolute ineptitude when it came to Spidey sense about which cable connects to what.
Is it crash ride one or cymbal ride one?
Comedy of errors, not having the right chords when it came time to record.
Moment of truth.
All of it packed into a single weekend because I had to load it in, set it up, review, then load out. And stuff kept going wrong.
I'll deal with it later. Just get this out of the way. One in the right spot. Ooh. Okay, so
we're still missing two cables. Then this. Also this. And this. Little of this. That'll be transcribed for you if you click the link below the player, by the way. I wanted to hate them, and they wouldn't let me. Okay, loath to admit though I am, I'm having fun. Weeks later, as I edit this, I'm struck by one thing. If you have anything less than real good mics, great well-tuned drums with new heads, and a good mix, these are going to sound better in a mix than most acoustic drums. But they're also not for everybody, and not for every occasion. In this video, my dead honest review of the Roland VAD516 kit, from a lifelong acoustic drummer. An acoustic snob, if you will. The response, it takes a little getting used to. And I'll also show you some cheeky kit flow warm-ups to get the most out of your 5-piece, whether that's E-drums or your acoustic kit. And as I said, transcription below. I'm Nate, this is the 80/20 Drummer, and today, I was wrong about E-drums. Here's why. Stay tuned. Chapter 1, Why I Was a Skeptic. To begin with, I've long had some objections to E-drums. Some more rational and others more emotional. For starters, there's the appearance. 15 years ago, the highest end E-kits had kind of truncated shells, and the average E-kit just looked like a practice pad kit. More importantly, there was the feeling. In cases in which they were little more than trigger pads, you were essentially hitting hard rubber. Nothing like the response you'd get from a real drum. Even the higher end ones with mesh heads felt like mesh practice heads. A little too bouncy, a little too live, lacking the difference in tension that acoustic drums have depending on the drum size. More importantly, there was the auditory feedback. To me, and this is just my opinion, a lot of the previous generation felt artificially gated. An acoustic drum gives you an analog response. So if you hit with XYZ newtons, it's gonna give that back to you. And yeah, a lot of those early E-drums felt gated to me. As if there were 3 trigger dynamics, and if your input was between them, it would round off to the nearest terrace. And the sounds weren't that great either. A lot of the sound sounded really 80s drum machine. Great when you want that specific sound, but a poor substitute for real drums. But I was also aware of the reality. A ton of drummers live in spaces where you can't make much noise. In cities, or houses with close neighbors, or family members who don't want to hear pounding all day every day. I may know a little about this. And in cities, renting a rehearsal space where you can actually make noise isn't cheap. In the mid-hundreds of dollars per month in New York for a shared space. So you can see why drummers gravitate toward these kits. And a number of my students play them as well. My advice to them was always, sure, use the C kit when you have to, but try to get some time on a real kit a couple times a week to calibrate your feeling. Enter the new generation of E-drums. More realistic feel. More realistic sound response from the triggers. Way more realistic and better drum sounds from the synthesizers. And companies got the message that we drummers like, well, drums. So here's a montage of some of the footage of new E-kits that's crossed my newsfeed. I don't claim to be super familiar with all these brands. Then, this October, Roland reached out with exactly the right timing. I'd been thinking about reviewing an E-kit for a while since, as I've said, so many of my students play them. I'm moving. More on this later, but I got a little bit of a YOLO attitude toward anything that's easier to do when I'm still in New York. Like, might as well do it now. And for the first time in a while, I had a spare week in the old shoot schedule. So I said, why not? What follows is comical. Not so much for the drums as for the reviewer.
Is it Crash Ride 1 or Cymbal Ride 1?
The sheer gigantery of the shipment. Me out of my depth when it comes to connecting cables, choosing drum sounds, getting the E-kit to record into the DAW, and all of it.
I'll deal with it later.
If you want to skip directly to my bottom line on these drums, just skip to the time index here on your screen. Otherwise, take the journey with me. I suffered for you. Let's get into all of it. Chapter 2, The Arrival. So Roland sent me their second best kit. There's the top of the line V8716 with beautiful wood finishes. Then there's the 516. No less impressive under the surface, but with a more modest wrap finish. And a 5-piece instead of a 6. But up until they arrived, I just assumed they'd be one of the lower end kits. I figured they'd be sending the big ticket items to Siberiano or Gabe at Drum Beats Online or whatever. Which was fine with me. Less space required, less hassle, simpler to connect. When the text from the delivery company came, I calmly arranged a time to be at home. Then, this. An entire pallet. Roland, mistaking me for a YouTuber with clout, had accidentally sent their second highest end E-kit, the VAD516. Remember, that's a full 5-piece, complete with hardware and cymbals, plus all the electronics to make it tick. And stands to put everything on. I kinda covered that with hardware, I know. And to make matters more comical, Roland packs things very carefully. I'm told to ensure no damage in shipping, which can jostle things around. So what that means in practice is outer boxes containing inner boxes. Also, I should have asked that this be delivered directly to 8020 HQ, because they took up 3/4 of my mailroom. After some incredulous glances from neighbors, and no fewer than 3 trips back and forth from my apartment to my studio, which thankfully is just a 10-minute drive, we had everything assembled in the room. Cue the unboxing, Batman! No, sod that. Let's just cue the time lapse as I unbox everything. What, you're gonna do that? Okay, I'll narrate a little. Chapter 3, the VAD516 Unplugged. The more this kit took shape, the more a few things occurred to me. First, with the exception of throne, snare stand, hi-hat stand, and kick pedal, everything's here. They've got these handy double-boomed cymbal stands that hold both cymbals and toms. Usually, I hate cymbal-mounted toms, but Roland seems to have solved this with bespoke hardware. And what that buys you is independence in placement for kick and toms. For instance, if you have long legs but like your toms close, etc. Second observation. These are full-sized and full-depth drums. And that's a mixed bag. If you're buying an E-kit to save space, obviously this isn't going to save you any space over an acoustic 5-piece. But there's something intangible about being able to apply all your space memory of where you put your acoustic drums, and not having any wonky ergonomics. Finally, it was the end of day 1. I'd spent almost 3 hours ferrying these to the studio, unboxing, setting up, and disposing of the cardboard in as responsible a way as I could, which basically meant stacking them by the dumpsters outside. But by the end, they were set up in the studio. Tomorrow I'll return to connect all the cables, figure out the electronics, and try to record. I returned the afternoon of day 2 knowing I probably needed to get all the additional footage in the one remaining day before I'd have to tear them down and store them, since my roommates have band rehearsals and need to use the house acoustic kit for those. I thought day 2 would be easy.
Wait for it.
But
Wait for it.
I was wrong.
Nothing still, huh?
Chapter 4, Plugged. Things began innocently enough. The packaging includes a big idiot-proof flowchart on how to set things up for the first time. Lazy person pro tip: you mostly don't need the owner's manual. That's for if you want a 301 understanding of every intricacy and have 2 days to spare. Most gear these days has a cheat sheet, a one-pager that folds out like IKEA directions. Plus, I had a hunch that Roland would make their user interface easy once I turned on the thingy.
It's alive!
All of that was correct. The cables were well labeled and logically bundled. Connecting everything took me 25 minutes, which is to say it would take an average person like 15. The problem didn't come until later.
We're missing one connection cable.
I could swear there's a cable missing, but I checked and rechecked all the packaging with the existing cables, which were all bundled together in the same set of boxes. No dice. Desperate, I asked GPT, and the answer made my heart catch in my throat. There was another cable in another box, and I'd recycled it by the dumpsters outside my studio building. I'll spoil the end. About 5 hours later, I discovered the boxes were still out by the dumpster. NYC garbage pickup for the win. After 15 minutes of rooting around like a... I won't complete the sentence. But anyway, after 15 minutes of rooting around, I found them. But back to the present, which is to say back to the... You get it. I would have to complete this review without them. With almost everything connected, it was time to activate the module.
It's alive!
And just as I'd suspected, Roland set us up for success. Just turn it on and you're basically ready to go with the out-of-the-box drum sounds. Now, all I had to do was figure out how to record them.
One eternity later.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
I'll spare you this part.
Nothing still, huh?
Suffice it to say, future me would have told past me, all you have to do is take your MacBook charger, plug one side into your computer, the other side into the eDrums module, and fire up your DAW. The Roland module takes care of the rest. And you can just plug your headphones into the Roland module. It will literally take the sound from your DAW automatically. Okay, let's just review up to this point. It had been a hard road. Delivery and transport, unboxing, losing the cable,
We're missing one connection cable.
not knowing the simple solution to recording them,
Wait for it. Wait for it.
etc. But now, it was finally time to record them. Part 2, the review. Finally, I could take these babies around the block. I started with the default drum sound,
It's Studio A.
then experimented with a few others.
This is Gospel Chops. Studio B. Rock Energy.
First impressions. This is not your grandfather's E-kit. The physical feel of the drums is different. Because they're realistic sizes, the head tensions are more in line with real drums. They're also placed realistically. And the out-of-the-box kit options will take you far. But as we'll discover, it's not that hard to customize either by changing the tuning or assembling a custom kit. All the drums have rubber rims to register realistic rim shots, and the range of sounds and dynamics is much more in line with acoustic drums than previous generations, that I played at least. In a minute, we'll get to the only request Roland had for this video, to explore recording the V-drums along with tracks. But first, you probably want the bottom line. Here it is. Compared to the E-drums I remember, these are a much more viable substitute for acoustic drums. Let's take my major issues in order. Old E-drums. Unrealistic tactile response, due to either hard rubber or uncharacteristic mesh heads. These, much more realistic, due I assume to improvements in head materials, but also more realistic drum sizes and responses. Old E-drums, very 80s drum sounds, do not mimic the grid of a real kit, much less the analog dynamic response depending on how hard or where you hit. These, I should probably read some of their material on this, but I'll just say triggering tech, or the triggering tech they're using, has advanced quite a bit. They're now much closer to mimicking the dynamic response you get from real drums, including if you hit them off center. And the drum sounds are way more realistic too. There are a ton of parameters for customization, but they're capturing ever more of the wrinkles analog drums have. Finally, old drums, just kinda ugly. These, as I've said, not quite as acoustic coded as the top of the line 716 kit, but really great looking in a den or living space, in my opinion. They're also not for everyone, and I won't hold back on some of the cons. But first, let's do what it says on the tin. Let's play these with music. Chapter second to last, playing them with tracks. This, in my opinion, is where these drums really shine compared to acoustics. Recorded sound with tracks. To test this out, I went to my Morse's archive and downloaded 2 songs I'd used in previous 80/20 videos. Wake Up This Day by Tom Misch featuring Jordan Rakai, and Butterfly by Jamiroquai. Let's listen in a little. For Jamiroquai, I wanted a more classic drum sound. Let's check out a little of that. Okay, loath to admit though I am, I'm having fun. And the playback sounds amazing. The integration with the recording is seamless. So if you want something that takes all the edges off acoustic drums and just takes you to a place where it sounds like it was really well mixed and mastered out of the box, this works really well. Chapter last, bottom line. Saying it right away. Where these truly shine is with tracks. I'ma do whatever it takes. When I shared Wake Up This Day on Instagram, the response was out of proportion with my usual videos. It's no mystery why. In order to beat this mix, you need a pro mic setup, good EQ, good mixing, etc. A lot of money, big learning curve. But the 516s just sounded great out of the box. When you add a little EQ, forget about it. I also promised a sober review of some of the cons, and I'll give that to you now. First, this is not a kit for people who want to save space. As I mentioned, it's the size of a full-size Fusion 5-piece. So this is a piece for people who maybe want some noise limitation, but have space. Second, there's no way to sugarcoat this. These are not cheap. I'll let you look up the MSRP, and it varies by seller and region, but these are in mid to high tier acoustic kit territory. Roland is not positioning these as second best to acoustic drums, but rather another instrument entirely. One worth every penny, and they have reason to be confident. But this is not a kit for penny pinchers. Third, the feel is so much better than previous generations of kits. But it's still not a perfect facsimile. And maybe you don't want it to be. This kit feels like it compensated for me. Rounded off strikes that weren't perfect. Made me sound more polished than I do in real life. But if you ultimately want to play acoustic drums, yes, you can practice 6 days a week on the V-drums, but I'd still recommend getting 1 day a week on the acoustic kit. With that out of the way, want to learn some quick warm-ups for flowing around a 5-piece? These will be transcribed for you below. Bonus, warm-ups. So, eating crow time. I was wrong about eDrums. I would recommend these to anyone with the space and the money. I have several students who own eDrums in addition to acoustic kits. They're no longer just poor substitutes. They're their own thing. And I didn't pull any punches in this review. And I suffered for you guys. But end of the day, Roland had confidence that if they mailed a gigantic, ridiculous e-kit to a YouTuber who swears only by acoustic, with zero editorial pressure, their product would still come out looking good. And they were right. All right, y'all. I have a feeling that's a long one. Did it change any opinions? Leave a comment below. And as always, if you'd like a free transcription of the 5-piece flow warm-ups we had, the bonus warm-ups at the end, just click the link below the player and tell us where to send them on the next page. Dudes, it's been real. Always enjoyed these. See you again real soon in another lesson of the week. One of these days, I'm gonna get a gimbal.